Hello, everyone. A very good morning, good afternoon for the people who are sitting within US in different time zones, and good evening as well for the people who are sitting outside US and attending this webinar. I'd like to welcome you all on this webinar on the latest version 2022 of the standard ISO 27001 Information Security Management System. Before I move on with my profile and brief about my company and rest of the slides, I like to highlight that there is a chat box available in all of your dashboards. So you can enter your questions in that chat area. I will try to answer them as much as I can, as much as possible towards the end of the webinar. And for those questions which may stay unanswered, we will try to formulate the answers of all of that and we'll circulate it, we'll email it to all the attendees so that all your questions will be answered. Brief about myself. So my name is Syed Arshad Hashmi. I'm the Director of Training at Bureau Veritas Certification North America. By profession, I'm an engineer and have more than 25 years of working experience as a trainer, auditor, and consultant for many ISO standards. The first 16 years of my career is working as a consultant, and then I started working with Bureau Veritas. So it's been good 11 years working with Bureau Veritas. I've done almost 140 consulting assignments. I've done 500 to 600 training sessions on different international standards, and I've done a number of audits. I've done audits and trainings globally, as you can see, and I have conducted a number of IRCA trainings, IRCA certified trainings for different ISO standards, among which ISO 27001 is one of them. So I've done a number of lead auditor trainings on ISO 27001 Information Security Management System. I'm also a certified information security manager, and I'm also a certified in risk and information system control by ISACA. About my Bureau Veritas. So Bureau Veritas is a global leader in testing, inspection, and certification. Our mission is to shape a world of trust by reducing client risk, improving their performance, and helping them innovate to meet the challenges of quality, health and safety, environmental protection leading to sustainability, enterprise risk management, and social responsibilities. It's a French company, so we are mostly clustered in Europe. Nevertheless, we are present in North and South America as well. And alone in North America, we have around 160 offices and labs in 50 states and Canada. So Bureau Veritas certification offering are all these certifications. And as you can see, that some of them are generic and some of them are industry specific. Like automotive industry, aerospace, they have their own certifications, food safety certifications. But then health and safety, quality, environment, information security, these are generic, as well as some of them are industry specific as well. So we provide certification against all these international standards, and we provide trainings against all these international standards. This is my YouTube channel. So people ask if the presentation will be available. Yes, it will be very much available. After the slides will not be available, but the whole webinar will be available, the recording of this webinar. And you can well view that by going to the Bureau Veritas North America YouTube channel. And it also has other recordings of my previous webinars and other subject matter expert webinars as well. So you can take the benefit of that. Expectations. So the initial questions and the registrations that I received from the attendees, I kind of categorize them in two things. One is, of course, the objective of the webinar, which is the latest version, 2022 version. So what is contained in there? What has been changed from the previous 2013 version? So that is one of the expectations, and that is one of the objectives as well of this webinar. Nevertheless, I've seen some people who are new to this information security as well. So what I've done is that almost like 10% of this webinar is based on the few concepts of information security, so that I'll get those people on board. And there may be something new to all of you in those concepts of information security, but nevertheless, they're very well known. So I'll just spend a few slides on that, and then I'll move on, which is the main focus of my today's webinar, which is the 2022 version. So the agenda that I've made for today's webinar comprise of the concepts of information security, as I just told you, and then what are the operational risks that the organization faces, and then the business objectives versus information security. So what is the correlation? So that I can explain you that why information security is essential for every type of organization. And then you must have heard the term risk assessment. So I try to make a correlation on risk assessment versus information security so that you can understand the dynamics, that what are the different key elements within the information security management system and how they correlate to each other. And then, of course, I'll be discussing the new standard. So what has changed? Structure-wise changes, then clause-by-clause changes, then Annex A, the control changes. So I'll go in detail about all those changes, which is the very purpose of this webinar. And then I'll be addressing lastly the transition and certification timelines. So when it was published, how the different companies who are already certified to the 2013 version, what are their timelines, and those who are recently going for the certification, so how would they go towards the previous certificate, towards the current 2013 version or towards the new version? What are the timelines on that? So I'll be discussing all of that. And then our training schedule and context. And lastly, I'll be taking your questions. So starting from the concepts of information, there's some basics that we need to address to so that we can justify why the information security is necessary and essential for any. So any type of organization has some organization objectives, and those objectives are normally in terms of the services that can be provided and the annual turnover and the profit margin, the profitability that needs to be maintained, or the turnover that needs to be acquired. So normally every organization has these kind of different business objectives. So what we need to understand that every organization comes with the business objectives. And in order to achieve those business objectives, we need the conducive working environment, a favorable working environment, a smooth working environment, so that we do our operations on daily basis and try to achieve the organization objective. But the working environment depends upon a number of external and internal factors. Now, external factors are pretty evident, as you can understand, and you have seen in the past years. One of the greatest examples of the external factors is the pandemic, where any organization really did not have any control, and all they learned is to respond to those external factors. So it can be pandemic, it can be natural disasters, earthquake, or anything that is geopolitical conditions, anything that is out of the control of the organization. That is the external factors. But about the internal factors, there are a lot of things which are in control of the organization. And among the internal factors, what we need the most is the process and operations and the related resources. So whenever an organization set an objective, they establish that my processes and my resources will stay stable 24/7. And based on that, we set our organization objectives. But this is not how it goes. So in actual world, we face number of operational risks. Now, what are operational risks? Operational risk is anything that impact the organization working, that can affect the organization and the achievement of organization objectives. So let me give you an overview of the type of operational risks that any organization may face. And you can well make a correlation to that slide. That operational risks are of different types. One is that the management information risk. So if they may not have the right information, they will not be making the right decisions. So the information risk is always there, based on which they will make their decisions. Then facilities and operating environment risks. So the infrastructure, we need that, and the risk is always there. Legal and regulatory compliance risk. So failure to comply, any litigation, that risk is always there. What is the law of the land? And then this is very well known, the technology risk. So the technology risk, any failure in the technology part, that risk is always there, which impacts the organization working. Criminal and illicit act risk. So anything that is done by the human, by the intentional damage to the organization, that is always there. And then the supplier risk, we are always dependent on number of suppliers. Some of them are very critical suppliers. So their commitment to supply as per agreed terms and conditions. So that risk is always there. And lastly, as I told you, the climate and weather risk. So if you may ask yourself a question that what causes these operational risks? Or let me rephrase my question that what exactly goes wrong within your organization that causes these operational risks, or in simple words, the disruption in our operations. So what I've done is that I've categorized those issues, normal issues that you face every now and then within your organization in 4 categories. One category is the organizational and department level issues. Now, at the organizational level, there are a number of issues, and you can see it and read it from the slide as well, that this is what we face every now and then, which may cause these operational risks to happen, which may cause the disruption in our business processes. And some of them, the important issues are these, but nevertheless, all of them are important. And we can see that number of issues are there present in our organization as well. Unattended documents, visitor, unmonitored access within the office premises, open use of public wireless networks by company top officials, open use of USBs, floppy drives. So you can see that there are a number of issues which may be true for your organization as well, or for that matter, generally speaking, any other organization. So this is at the organizational level. Then the personnel level issue, the human element. And this human element is very, very important in information security. And these are number of issues that are present at the human level. You can see some of the important issues are verbal communication about the official matters, document information lying on the top of the table, screens, systems left unattended, excessive unauthorized use of telephone, mobile phones, SMS, email by the staff, and sharing the confidential information on that. So these are all the human element is there with respect to the information security. So these are all the issues that may cause the operational risk. And then the IT level issues. So I think every now and then we face these kind of issues in our organization. And these are some of the important issues. So IT security measure controls are based upon the IT manager and vendor recommendations. So there's no formal mechanism to ensure that how the security measures should be placed. And this mostly goes by the vendor recommendation because the vendor tried to sell everything to an IT group. So no standard operating procedure, absence of storage medium disposal policies, and things like that. So a lot of issues that we face on daily basis in our organization, which may give rise to the operational. Lastly, the supplier end issues. So the external third parties, as I told you, that we are very much dependent. Every organization is dependent on the third party. So these are some of the critical issues that an organization faces vis-a-vis the third party. So critical third parties and related risks are not identified and evaluated. So we do have certain things in the terms and conditions, but there are no formal analysis or no formal risk assessment for the risks that are there while contracting with certain critical third parties. So we need to understand all these issues, and these are the issues which give rise to the operational. So what we can say safely is that the operational risks, we can reduce the operational risk by the identification and minimization of risks to business operations and related resources by ensuring information security. So the information security comes into the picture because it identifies and minimizes those risks to the business operations and our processes. That is the key element in information security. So in turn, what we can conclude out of that is that in today's world, the stakeholders are not just looking on our business plans. They also need to know that how we are going to protect our existence. And this has been proven true when we were hit by the pandemic during the year 2022 and 2021. So there's a need of a formal information security management system to address all these issues to meet the organization business objectives. So we need to understand this thing that an organization does not exist to practice information security. The organization exists to achieve certain business objectives. And in that, information security management system play as a tool in ensuring that you achieve the business objective every time you set it. In mind, let's talk about the simple terms of the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. And I'm sure the type of people that have been registered, they're well aware of these three parameters of the information. And I would not go into much of the details, but for the newbies, these are the three elements or three parameters of information that we need to protect. And the preservation of these three is called as information security. So the information security is basically defined as the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information, without going into any details of that. But what is important to understand here is that the operational issues or the operational risks that I showed you, all these operational risks are usually caused by the compromise in the CIA of the information or the information assets or business processes. So we need to understand that either those issues may be caused by the compromise in the CIA or may impact the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the information assets or business processes. So understanding this fact that there is a direct correlation between the two, what we can further that the organization objective, which can be hit by the operational risk, is basically due to the compromise in the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the information. This in turn also tells us that how we can minimize the compromise in the CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability of information and information assets. That is by doing the risk assessment. Now, risk assessment is the basis, is the foundation for information security management system. So I'm just want to highlight it on a conceptual level that when you do the risk assessment, when you find out that what are the risks to your business processes, to your information assets, you basically trying to reduce the level of operational risk. And the moment you try to reduce the level of operational risk, you basically try to increase the chances of achievement of the organizational objective. So there's a direct correlation in the whole exercise. And information security management system really helps you as a tool in achieving your organization business objective. So these are the few concepts that I just kept in my presentation for the newbies to understand how does it all go and how this is all correlated, but I cannot go into further details of that. I will touch base on the risk assessment again when I'll be touching on the class 6, when I'll be going through the slides of changes versus the 2013 version and 2022 version. So I'll come back to it again, but just understand the concept that that's how the information security management system contributes to the organizational business objective. Now let's talk about the 27001 information security management system, and of course the latest version, 2022 version. So okay, before I do that, there's a family of standards, and I just want you to have a quick look on that there are a lot of supporting standards to the main 27001 2022 standard. The middle one, the 27001 2022, is basically the certifiable standard, and all the other standards are in support or provide guidance on the implementation of different elements for 27001 2022. For example, the one standard that you will be referring to is 27002 2022, and I'll just tell you a correlation in the coming up slides, but just remember that these two standards will go in tandem. The Annex A defined in 27001 is all taken from 27002, and I'll explain it in the coming up slide, but just pay attention to these two standards because these are going to be my main focus in the coming up slides. Other than that, as you can see and appreciate, there is auditing guidelines for 27001 standard, which is called 27007. Now, interestingly, you can appreciate the fact that the 27001 has its own auditing guidelines, which is different than for the other standards, like for example, quality, environment, health and safety, the other 9001, 14000, 45000. There are generic guidelines, which is called 19011, 19011, which are generic guidelines which can be followed for any of the internal auditing for any of the standards. But for 27001, they have produced its own guidelines for auditing, which are called 27,000 so just want to tell you the strength of this particular 27,001 standard. So these are the standards, and I want you to focus on these two standards as I'll be referring in my coming slides. But there are standards which are also important, and you can refer it as per the business need of your organization or the type of your organization. Among these list, and this is not exhaustive, there are other standards as well, but among these lists, some of the standards that are really gaining a lot of importance and a lot of focus is 27701, which is on privacy information management, 2717, which is on cloud services, and 27018, which is on PII, which stands for personally identifiable information. So these are the three standards which are gaining a lot of focus in the market and a lot of interest in the market. Nevertheless, you can use any of these standards, guidelines to further strengthen your information security. And there's an exhaustive list which you can refer in the bibliography of 27001 and 27002 for further sector specific standards. So anyone wants to go gain further knowledge on that, you can refer the bibliography of these standards. Now, what has changed? So you can see this is the 2013 version, and this one is the 2022 version. So the first thing that has changed is the edition. It's called second edition, and this is the third edition. So the first 27001 came in 2005, 2013 was the second revision, and this is the third revision, which is 2022. It's published exactly in 25th October 2022. The other thing that they have changed is the title. So it says Information Technology Security Technique. Now it says Information Security, Cyber Security, and Privacy Protection. So you can see that the title has been changed. Now this is the contents for previous standard 2013, so that I can make a correlation with that. So I hope everyone can recall, whoever is aware, that this is a 10 clause structure, and among that 10 clause, these are the same 10 clauses which are present in most of the ISO standards. So I believe whoever is aware of the 27, and most of you must have been aware of the 27001 previous version, you must be aware of this contents side of it. Now let's have a look at the new and what has been introduced new. So this is the 2022 content side. And if you compare the 27001, the previous standard, and the new standard, you can see that all of it is same. The structure is exactly identical with few minor changes. One of them is that if you can see, like for example 6.1, so here they have included the contents, the subclauses 611, 612, and 613. Here it was not written, but very much included. So do not think that when they are writing the subclauses, it was not written here in the contents page, except for few clauses, which are my 9th clause and 10th clause. So when I'll come to the 9th and 10th clause, I'll explain you that the structure has been changed here, the subclause wise. But other than that, the 7.5, if you look at the 2013 7.5, you'll find the same structure, the subclause structure, as you see on the left side in the new version. So there's not much change here. Nevertheless, one thing, a few changes that they have made is the introduction. So if you can see, there was a 0 in the introduction, and they have removed it. There's no 0, and they try to align it with the rest of the ISO standard. I do not know why they have put 0 earlier here, because all the other standards do not have the 0 here. So that is one change. There is another change, and this is about a clause, and there is an error in 27001 2022 version. And if you see the 6.2 clause, they have added a clause which is 6.3, planning of changes, and it is not listed in the contents page. So it has definitely been missed out to be written in the contents page. Nevertheless, this is very much present in the new version, and this is explained in the new version, the planning of changes, and I'll explain to you when I'll reach the clause 6. And this has been definitely missed out to be present in the 27001. It will not give it will not implicate anything on your implementation and auditing. Just that you should know, so that you would not get confused when you go back to your organization. So this is the structure of the 27001 2022, not much different than what we had in 2013. And out of that, the 4 till 10 clause plus Annex A. These clauses are called auditable clauses. So we can well segregate the standard in two parts. One part is related to the part 1, which is about the management system, and this is the part 2, which is about the controls that is required to be implemented. So the relationship between these two is like this. So the objective of the information security is the preservation of CINA, as I told you, and this 4 till 10 establishes the information security management system. And when you are establishing the information security management system, the 6th clause asks for the risk assessment, and within 6 there is a clause 6.1.3 which asks for risk treatment. And while doing the risk treatment, you need to place controls, and those controls are defined in Annex A of the 27001. And I've written here 27002. This is where you refer the other standard. I hope you can recall when I told you, when I was showing you the family of ISO standards, 27001, that these are the two standards which go in tandem. So 27001 needs to be read along with 27002, especially when you are referring to the Annex A controls. So when you will be referring those 27002 controls, that will be when you will be doing the risk treatment in clause 6.1.3. So moving ahead, the Annex A, a little explanation on Annex A. Now the new standard is coming with 4 domains with 93 controls. If somebody may not be able to recall, the previous standard was having 14 domains in 114 controls. And I'll just show you the next slide that how it was for your ready reference. But just to emphasize, so these are the 4 domains: organizational controls, people control, physical control, and technology control. So they have converted into 4 domains, and these are the clause numbers: A5, A6, A7, A8. So when you see the Annex A of 27001, you will find these numbering, but this numbering has been taken from 27002. So in 27002 at A5, start addressing the organizational controls, people control, physical control, and technology controls. So these control, the 4 domain has these sub controls, and these controls total to 93 here. Just for the reference, this is the previous version, and previous version used to have 14 domains, and they used to have 114 controls. So these are the controls within each domain, and this is the description. This is just for the quick reference so that you can make a of that. So let's go with the clauses from 4 till 10 and what has been changed and what has been newly. So the 4 till 10 clause following the same philosophy of plan, do, check, and act. I hope most of you are well aware of that. And among that, 4 till 7 clauses are about planning, and 8 is about operations, and 9 is about performance evaluation, checking, and 10 is about improvement. So it is following the same cycle of PDCA, and there's nothing much changed, which is a good news for the people who are already certified to the 2013. So let's start with the clause 4. Nothing much changed in clause 4 except for that there is a requirement which has been added, requirement of interested parties to be addressed through ISMS. Now, personally, I would think that whatever has been changed, this was really there before as well, but it was all implied. Now they've made it very explicit. So when we were working on the 2013 version of the 27001, we did address all of that, which was very much implied in the standard. But now they've made it very explicit to make it more meaningful. So they have really aligned it with the practical working. Especially you will see within the control section that how well they have aligned all of that. Clause 5, there is no change, and I will not go into the details of that. This is all about leadership, how to commitment and the policy and the organizational roles and responsibilities. So let's focus on the objective of this webinar, which are about the changes. I'll go through just the change part of it. Now in clause 6, there has been some significant changes. So one of the change is that the IS objective, within 6.2, you need to establish information security objectives. So they have put it as objectives are to be monitored, objectives to be available as documented information. They've made it explicit. It was very much implied. Like, for example, if you talk about objectives to be monitored, now in the other clause, 9.3 management review, objective needs to be reviewed. So in order for you to review the objectives, they must need to be monitored. So the monitoring part was there before, but it was implied. Now they have made it explicit. So it's just the matter of that they are aligning it well and making it explicit for the organization to make it more meaningful. Nevertheless, it was all there, and I could not see any new thing here till clause 6. The risk assessment, methodology, treatment, everything is just like the same we did in 2013 version. Now here's the thing, the new clause, planning of changes. I hope you can recall, this is one of those clauses which has been missed out to be present in the contents page of the 27001-2022 version. Now you can see that changes to the assets to be carried out in a planned manner. This was addressed before as well in change management process within A1212 and A14 controls, and there are a number of other places where it addresses about the change management. But I believe what they're trying to highlight is the planning part of it, because earlier they were talking about controlling the changes. Of course, in order for you to control it, you need to plan it well. So this was implied. Now they made it explicit. Another reason that I could understand why they have put 6.3 is to align it with other standards as well. So the other standard structure also has 6.3, and they align it with the other structure and highlighted the planning of changes part. So this was new, and this is where this content page, I hope you can recall that how this was missed out in the contents page, but do remember that this is very much part of the standard. Then I have put a slide again for all of you or for the newbies as well, that how this risk assessment works. So when you do the risk assessment for different threats or based on assets or based on your processes, so whichever way you want to do the risk assessment, and you set a scale of risk, let's suppose 1 till 10 or 1 till 25 or whatever, then you will come up with different risk values for your different threat analysis or for your different asset analysis. And once you are coming up with these different values of risk, then there is acceptable level of risk and there's an unacceptable level of risk. So you need to define a threshold value, which is called the acceptable risk value. Based on that, you will compare and evaluate which are your significant risks so that you can work on those significant risks, which are unacceptable risk, and lower their risk value down by placing controls where the risk treatment process comes in, which is by 6.1.3. So this is exactly the area where you will be referring to all those best security practices as defined in the 4 domains and 93 controls in Annex A of the latest 2022 version. So I hope this graphical presentation gives you an overview that how this risk assessment would look like and where this is all going towards and how this all is correlated with each other. So this is how it goes. Moving on again, focusing on the changes only. The clause 7, there's no change in that. The only change is content-wise that they have put these sub-clauses 751, 752, 753 on the contents of the 2022 version. Otherwise, there's no change. So I would not go into the details of this. Now in 8th clause, there is one interesting change, and I really want to highlight that one change, which is about the establishing criteria for operational processes and implementing controls of the processes. Again, as I said earlier, that this was very much implied, because once you establish the risk assessment and once you list down a control, you really cannot follow the control unless you establish the criteria for doing that control. And I'll give you a simple example, but let me show you the standard of that. So this is the clause and this is the area which has been newly introduced, that establishing criteria for the processes and implementing controls of the process in accordance with the criteria. So as I said, that this was pretty much implied, but now they have made it explicit. This is also aligning with other standard write-up as well. So what do you mean by establishing criteria for the processes? Let's suppose you're coming up with password management. Now, this password management, as we all face in our organization, we need to go alphanumeric. We need to do it every 3 months, and we cannot use the same password as we have used it for the last 5 times or 10 times and things like that. It should have a special character. So we define all these policies and for the password management. who will do it, how will it be installed, and things like that. So this is what is called establishing the criteria for the processes. So whatever the process that you are establishing, what are the controls that you are establishing, you need to establish the criteria for that. How will you go about it, and how the process will take place, who will be responsible for that. And this is the technical side control or technical side process. Let's talk about a non-technical. For example, visitor escorting policy. Now, how will that happen? When a visitor arrives at your premises and they need to meet somebody, so how would they be escorted when they meet someone, or what is the escorting policy about that, who will do it, and how you're going to make it happen on the ground. So you need to establish the criteria for different kind of technological as well as non-technological processes and controls, and then you need to implement it. And again, the documented information is dependent upon the organization, that how much you like to document it. So you need to understand that this was implied, and now they have made it pretty explicit that you need to establish the criteria. So this is one of in the 9th and 10th clause, there is really no change. And if you can recall, I told you in the contents page that what they have done is that they have added these sub-clauses 921, 922, and 931, 932, and 93. So earlier it was just one clause, 9.2 and 9.3. Now they have added it sub-clauses to align with the other ISO standard structure, because in all the other standards you will see that 9.2 will have 2 subclauses and 9.3 will have 3 subclauses. One thing that they have added apart from the structure is a requirement within the 932, which is 932C, that changes the needs and expectations of the interested parties. So among the other inputs that you need to discuss within the management review, this is one of the other management review inputs that you may need to discuss. Clause 10, no change, so I will not go into the details of that. Rather, I would like jump to the Annex A, which has some significant controls, changes. I hope you can recall, I showed you this slide. This was regarding the previous version, 27001, 2013. So 14 domains and 114 controls. Now let's see what do they have in 2022 version. So as I told you earlier, this is 4 domains in 93 controls. In totality, it looks something like this. So this was the Annex A. 114 controls with 14 domains in 2013 version, and this is 2022 version and 4 domains, and there are 93 controls. So what they have done is that there are new controls, 11 new controls, and to be honest, again, I am of the view that they were very much there. They're implied controls, except for a few, but they were very much there. Now they've made it quite explicit. So and as I'll go through those new controls, I'll explain you that part as well. Now, among that, 24 controls from merging 2 or more of the 2013 controls. So at the end, I put a slide which will show you that comparison as well, and I'll give you further reference from where you can look into that how the 2013 114 controls have been merged. Some of them have been merged into the 24 controls, almost like 56 to 58 controls from 2013 version have been merged to 24 controls. And the rest are updated to align with 2022 version. So they are there, but they have been updated. Yeah, there are 2 tables which you can refer to, B1 and B2 of 27002. So remember that these details are available in 27002 2022 version for further details, the B1 and B2. This is the other standard, the guidelines for control. So let's talk about the Annex A. So these are the 4 domains. So anything that may be concerning the individual, anything that has a physical object, concern the physical object, anything that has to do with the technology, and the rest, which are not falling into the 3 domains, they are all organizational controls. So that's how they have categorized. They've introduced, so this is the Annex A outlook. And as you can see that in 27001, this is how it will look. It says 5, as I told you that it will start with 5 till 8, and basically these numbering are taken from the 27002. So this is where you need to refer the 27002 for further guidance and implementation guidance for these controls. Now the 27002 looks like this, and it came before 27001 2022 version, and this was revised in back in March 2022. So it was a little earlier, like almost 6-7 months earlier than the main standard. And as I told you, these are implementation guidelines for all the controls that is defined in Annex A of 27000. So the look of the 27002 is something like this. So the 5.1 that I earlier showed you, this will be having this table within 27002. And this is a new thing. So what they have done is that they have added certain attributes. What are these attributes? I'll just explain you in my next slide. But these are certain attributes that they have added for better understanding of the controls. And then in place of the control objectives, they have changed the heading and call that as the purpose. So that is the only change that they have introduced. But this really gives a lot of meaning to the control thing. How? I'll just explain. So these are the control attributes. There are different attributes, as you saw in that 5-column table in the previous slide. Control type, security properties, cybersecurity framework concepts, operational capabilities, and security domains. So what I can tell you is that the control types, there are 3 types: preventive, detective, and corrective. And as the name implies, before something happens, at the time it's happening, and after it has happened and a threat has been materialized and you are responding to it, that's the corrective nature of control. So these are the control types that has been mentioned. The security properties, whether it is impacting the confidentiality, integrity, availability, or both, or 2 of them, or all 3 of them. Cybersecurity framework concepts. So there are certain cybersecurity framework concepts, and as you can see, there's a lot of overlap. So identify and protect is all covered in the preventive nature of control. Detect is detective, and corrective is respond and recover. So this will again help the cybersecurity companies or the to really identify the control, what is best for them. The operational capabilities is really for the implementers, where exactly these controls should be implemented. Is it related to governance? Is it related to physical security? Is it related to threat and vulnerability management, continuity? So operational capabilities gives an implementer exactly the idea where this should be followed and complied with on the ground. So operational capability will give you that further insight about the control. And then security domains. So these are all information security domains. Like for example, the governance domain, which talks about the information security governance and risk management. This ecosystem is ecosystem cybersecurity management, including internal and external stakeholders. Protection is about IT security architecture, IT security administration. And within defense, you can have detection, computer security, incident management, and resilience is all about continuity of operations and crisis management. So these are the information security domain, and the reason why they have put it this way is that so that the related organizations can be able to identify the controls within their domain and vis-a-vis the type of the organization that they are. So the attributes are used because they are generic enough to be used by different type of organizations. Organization can choose to disregard one or more of the given attributes. So remember this thing, my friends, that this 27002 is not the main standard. This is there to explain you the implementation of the controls that is defined in Annex A of the 27001. So 27001 is the main standard, and within that the Annex A is the requirement. And to help you in the implementing and provide you some guidance on the implementation side of those controls and to better understand different attributes of those controls, 27002 is there, and that is how and that is why it is structured that way, to provide you further insight towards those. Now these are the new structure controls, and as I've given you earlier as well. So skip to the new controls now. These are the 11 new controls, and I'll quickly go through them one. So threat intelligence is all about the different type of threats that you may be having, anyone may be having, and you can get the market or can get the knowledge from your own incidents and can do the threat intelligence. This is just like marketing intelligence that salespeople do. So you can well prepare proactively for your for the security of your organization if you do the threat intelligence and get to know about these threats. So there's a control. Again, it was implied. Now they've made it pretty. Information security of use of cloud services. The cloud services has become the part of the thing. Everyone is using cloud. So what are the considerations to that? A lot of good information is provided. What are the security requirements to be considered? How to establish the selection criteria? What will be the process for acceptable use of cloud? And things like that. So there are a lot of information provided in 27002 standard, the implementation guidelines, and that can help you big time in understanding those clauses. Then we have the ICT readiness, and again, as I told you, that for business continuity, whenever we used to plan, there was a previous control in the previous standard, which was continuity and resilience. I believe that was A17, yeah, that was A17 control in 2013 version. So this is specific to information and communication technology, that how would you go for the business continuity of information and communication, how you need to establish the recovery time objectives, recovery point objectives, and the whole business continuity concept, very specific to the ICT. So they have made it a specific clause. Nevertheless, it was very much there earlier in A17 clause in 2013. It was not that explicit. It was physical security monitoring. As I told you, that there was a previous clause, which is called A9, which talks about the physical security. This is same clause, but they have made it pretty explicit that how to do the monitoring of the side of the premises, and a lot of good information is available there. Then we have configuration management. So as I said, that configuration management is all about the configurations on your networks and on your hardware and software. Who will access what are the security settings, how your routers and switches will be configured, how your firewalls will be configured, and things like that. So this is all about configuration management. Who's authorized to access, how will you audit those your tools and your configuration management, who's the configuration manager, and things like that. So they have emphasized a lot about different configurations with respect to the different network and different IT infrastructure that you use, that how do you ensure the configuration there. Information deletion, as I told you, that this was very much there previously in the standard. It was pretty implied. Now they have made it explicit that delete it, and what should be the policies and procedures that you may need to follow with respect to the information deletion. Data masking is one of those techniques where you basically hide the PII, which is personally identifiable information data. And there are few techniques that is used to be followed. This is relatively a new thing, relatively, because it was again employed, but not that much employed. But data masking, there are a number of techniques that company follow. One of the way is called pseudonymization and called anonymization, which are different techniques to hide the personally identifiable information. So what are the principles that you need to follow? How will you go about it? In pseudonymization, you can re-identify the data by applying and mapping in reverse. So pseudonymization does not result in an anonymized data. Like in anonymization, you cannot recover the data; it's all gone. So these are different techniques that is defined within data masking, and you may consider. Then data leakage prevention, again, a lot of good information in 27002. You can go into the details of that, how to protect the leakage of the data. And again, as I said, this is very much a threat before as well, and we were considering that in 27001 2013 version, but this has been highlighted as a control. Monitoring activities, different logs, different who's doing what, especially the admin to the networks and admin to the servers, how their activities have been monitored. So this was again addressed before. Now they've highlighted in a separate clause, in a separate control, which is 8. Web filtering, what is allowed within the web, and I think we all know it very well. We all face it every how our IT, our own company's IT policies are protecting and placing different filters so that no malicious activity and no unauthorized access can be made through the web. So how the web filtering will take place, who will do what, and what is the acceptable use policy, a lot of good information. Secure coding, this is all about the coding principles and how do you do the coding within the. So if you are doing the software development in-house, even if you are getting it done through the outsides, or you are using certain open source software, how will you make sure that those open source software are securely coded and secure from the point of view of no unauthorized access can be made through those open source software. So how do you ensure the security of that and the third-party softwares, and how do you establish your own secure code? This is the slide that I was trying to place, which is about the merge controls. And as you can see, a lot of good things they have done. And honestly, I love this slide because while I was explaining the 2013 version, there's a lot of repetition. And just take one example, this 832 change management. This was addressed like in 3 or 4 different clauses. Change management about the operations and processes, system change control. This is in the software development cycles, technical review of applications. So changes were addressed in the previous version in number of controls, but now they have all merged it into one control. Similarly, if you see the logging, the event log, protection of log information, administrative and operative, they have all merged it into the one control, which is 850 logging. Similarly, if you see storage media, management of removable media disposal, so there are a number of other controls which is addressing one and the same issue in different dimensions, and they have beautifully merged it in one control, which makes life easier for all the implementers and for all the auditors and for all the instructors as well. So it makes a lot of logical sense to have these combined controls. And I tell you what, while you are working within your organization, this table B1 and B2 of 27002, so this is the other guideline standard for controls. This will help you big time in making these correlations where you have implemented and how you can take the benefit and merge these controls. So technically, on the implementation side of it, you may really do not need to do much, because if you are implementing all these change management and all these procedures, it's just that this has been addressed in 832 change management. So you do not need to do practically anything here, but all that you need to do is to make sure that this has all been aligned with the change management clause. That's it. Otherwise, they have been merged into these things. So these were my merge controls. Now, as I've taken a little more time than 45 minutes, but these are some of the important topics that I really want to address. So about the certification and transition timelines. So you need to understand few dates, as I've written it here. So October 2022 is the time when the new standard was published, in 25th October 2022. And these are some of the timelines. So the first timeline is important for the companies who are already certified to 27001. They need to transiate to 27001 2022 by October 2025. That is 3-year cycle. So these companies can still go for the surveillance audits on the previous 2013 version as well. And then sometimes after like October 2024 or after April 2024, whenever they like, they need to transiate to 2025 version. So that is one important thing that they can understand. But in between, they can do the surveillance audit on the previous version as well. Now, there's one set of companies which may be going for the 27001 2013 certification for the first time. Or there may be companies who are certified already and going for a recertification cycle. Now, the certification or recertification to the current 27000 2013, I should not call it current, let's call it previous version, is still valid till either October 2023 or April 2024. Now, this is the certification body decision. So whoever your company is certified to, you need to ask that what is the timeline that the certification body is giving you, that they can still provide you a certificate, initial certification or recertification against the previous version, which is the 2013 version. Okay, but after April 2024, there would not be any initial or recertification on the previous version, and everything has to be on the new version. So this is one thing that you need to pay attention to for those companies who are in the phase of implementation and about to acquire 2013 version certification, or who are about to complete their 3-year cycle, let's suppose by December, or by December 2023, or by October 2023, and they need to see that if the recertification can be done on the previous version, and then they will upgrade their systems to October till before October 2025 to the new version, 2022 version. And lastly, as per certification body, again, either by October 2023 or by April 2024, all the certification and recertification will only be on 27001. So there will be some certification bodies who may offer the certification to the previous version during this period, October and April, but everyone will not be offering the previous version certification after 2024. So I've written these 3 categories to make you understand that how this all will go and how this all will look like. With that, I'm reaching the end of my webinar, and I will try to take few questions. And again, excuse me if I'm taking a little more time than 45 minutes. I've kept the 10-15 minutes for the Q&A after my 45-minute slides, but it has taken longer, which is important to be addressed. The topics were important to be addressed. So we offer these public and virtual classroom trainings, and you can contact our training coordinator, Ms. Diana Cruz. These are their numbers. Our training website is bureauveritastraining.com/US, and this is our website, and you can download our latest training calendar from there. As I told you that by this webinar will be very much available on the YouTube channel of Bureau Veritas North America. So again, you can download, you can listen to this, my presentation again. I would not be able to share my slides as per company policy, but this will all be available very much to you through our Bureau Veritas YouTube training channel. And these are our contacts for the certification services if you are interested. And I'm very much available for any technical queries that you may have even after the webinar. So you can note down my numbers and you can note down my email. I'm very much available. So let's go ahead with few of the questions. And as I can see that there are a number of questions which has been entered while you were registering. And then there are a number of questions I can see that has been coming up through the webinar as well. So I'll try to answer some of the key questions, and then as I told you that rest I will be answering later on. I will be writing my responses, and then we will circulate those answers to all the attendees here. So let's go ahead with a few questions. One of the questions that was regarding that what has been changed. So I think I've answered that part of it. The other one is regarding the relationship between the 27001 and CMMC and SOC 2 and 9001 and other standards. So I can tell you one thing is that all these CMMC, SOC 2, these are all information security frameworks, and there's a lot of similarity between the two. Now it really goes with the business need of the organization. So who's asking for CMMC? If you are working for the government organization and you are a supplier, then you should go for that. But if you are 27001 certified, that will greatly help you in going for any other certification as well, be that CMMC, be that SOC 2. So it really depends upon what type of environment and what type of scenario you are in, and how would you like to go about that. So this is all about that. The other thing is regarding the other question is regarding are there any plan of action and milestones, the gap listed, so that can be specifically worked with direction. What I can tell you is that regarding this 27001, if you pay attention, the 4 till 10 clause has not been changed much. Okay, so those companies who are already certified to 27001 2013 version, they do not need to worry. All that you need to focus upon is the new controls, the new 11 controls that I have mentioned. All that you need to do is to focus on that and see how they are addressed within your organization. As I told you that they were pretty much implied, so they must be there within your organization, but you need to highlight it and you need to align it with the new requirements of the standard, so that you can make a correlation out of that. You need to revise your statement of applicability, SOA, You may need to review your risk assessment as well, and then you need to align your controls with respect to the new structure, so that you need to really work on the control side rather than the management system side. So 4 to 10 clauses are really do not require much changes as such, which is the good news because that's the main standard. But controls, with respect to controls, you really need to align. So the main document that will be impacted is the SOA, which is your statement of applicability, and your risk assessment. You need to see how these controls, especially the new controls, have been addressed there. There's one other question. How are the other standards documentation to be handled, which are still building on the 27001 2013 version structure example, 27701, 2717, and 2718. So these are all those standards which I showed you earlier, which was on privacy management, on PII, and on cloud services. So remember, my friends, that all these other standards, these are all guidelines. And these are guidelines for the controls implementation in different elements of the 27001. This is perfectly your call. The 8th standard, the 8.1 specifically talks about that the extent of documentation depends upon the structure, the business needs of the organization. How much you want to document, that's your call. That's the business need of the organization. Just document as much as you need so that it will not make it cumbersome for the people to follow. So that is one thing that you need to keep in mind. One last question let me take, because I've touched 1 hour, 60 minutes here. And this is one of the most interesting questions that I have seen. This is about what is the most common and unnecessary thing you see companies implement in their ISMS that gives very little value to a business. So this is one of the very, very interesting questions that I received. And I really like to take 1 or 2 minutes of yours to touch base on this one. So one of the things that I have seen is too much of documentation. And they just do it to impress the auditor. Try to make the system for your people rather than to get certification. That is one thing. Second thing is that people do not understand the benefits of the risk assessment. And again, they do it for the sake of the documentation. Try to understand that thing. And try to take the benefit out of that risk assessment. I've shown you an equation. There's a whole lot of, I do webinars, I do courses on that risk assessment. And it really changes the whole security posture of your organization if you